Hi, Cassey, and welcome to Vulnerability Rocks podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Enjoying the sun here. I'm sure it's sunny where you are too.
It's actually not. It's raining and freezing. So
Oh, you
I'm
just
a bit
shattered my
jealous right
dreams.
now.
You just shattered my dreams about Australia. Don't say that.
It's usually that way, but today, not so much.
Oh. So I'm really pleased to have you here today because I was introduced to you by a mutual friend about a year ago online, but we've never actually spoken like this together. And she introduced me to your journey of explant surgery, which is the connection at the time, and also that you were super into fitness and a healthy lifestyle and were kind of on this journey of discovering all things good and wellness. So I also saw a post about, maybe it was just a couple of weeks ago, where you were posting about honouring the women's cycle in terms of healthy movement. So I love all of the things that you're doing, and I'd obviously like to start our conversation with the explant journey, but I'm also really interested, especially in the recent post, about really honouring our body and the space that we're in and doing healthy, mindful movements. So I'd love to talk to you about all of those things.
Sounds great. I'm ready.
So let's go back to explant surgery, but probably let's go back just before to, I'm really interested to know your motivation for having breast implants in the first place and what headspace you were in and your thought processes at the time, and then we'll kind of move on from there.
Yes, well, this was 12 years ago, when going back to when I was living in Dubai and I was working for Emirates Airlines. I was in my mid-20s, and Dubai at that time, maybe it's still that way, I don't know, you can confirm, it was very plastic fantastic. Everyone was getting plastic surgery and Botox and all of the things. It was so easy and accessible. And my flatmate at the time was getting implants. And being in my mid-20s, I hadn't dealt with a lot of past wounds or things internally in terms of not feeling good enough or needing that external gratification. So it was an easy decision. It was pretty much like going to get my hair done. I didn't tell anyone back home, didn't tell my parents, my family that I was getting them done. Went in, got them done, all went well, like there was absolutely no issues. But I came back to Australia a year after that and discovered I had an air bubble in one of the breasts.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me feel really off balance and weird. You know, when your body's out of whack, you feel weird. So I went back to a doctor in Sydney and I went bigger. I decided to get them replaced instead of taken out, because I hadn't dealt with any of those previous issues internally. Okay. So I went to a 400cc, which was equivalent to an E-cup. So they were huge. But to me, I thought that they fit my body shape. I always thought I had broad shoulders. It was a comment that people used to make about me, that I have broad shoulders, I look like a swimmer. And that, to me, being a female at that age, I thought that was too athletic. I wanted to look skinny and fine and thin, and I wanted to hear those words, not the athletic, broad shoulders swimmer vibe. Mm-hmm. So I thought they looked good. I thought they fit my body shape, and I loved them for so many years.
So I can relate to that because I had mine done when I was 25.
Yeah.
Mine are still in now.
Yep.
So I'm 39 now. So mine have been in 13 years. So it's funny, as you're speaking this through about where you were at when you had them done, there's so much of that I can relate to.
Yeah.
As in, it wasn't like a big decision. I was like excited about it. I was like, yeah, put me in, you know. I'm doing it. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. So I can really relate to that part. So go on, tell me more. So you had them replaced, went to an E-cup.
yeah, went to an e-cup, and when I moved out of the corporate world and into the fitness world, which is now 8 years ago, there were times throughout that I felt uncomfortable when I was exercising, or that we were doing a lot of photo shoots and video shoots with who I was working with, and I felt like all I could see was boobs. Like, it was just big boobs. Every photo or every video I would watch, that's all I'd see, and I felt really self-conscious and a bit uncomfortable in my own skin, which was weird. But I'd also gone through a divorce, which was maybe 4 years ago now, and from that, I guess that's when I really started to tune into who I was, and started meditating and journaling and kinesiology and healing and going down that path. So it really forced me to listen within. And from that, I just started to feel like they weren't my vibe anymore. So I didn't have any sickness or illness necessarily. I did have low energy. That's probably the biggest thing. I'd have to have a nap every afternoon, but I didn't really connect the two. And also, I was always deficient in vitamins. Every time I go and get a blood test, I'd be down in iron and all of the things, so I'd have to be taking supplements. So when I made the decision was when, well, the final decision was when someone in my family got sick, very unwell, and it just really brought me back to what my values are in life, and my number one core value is health. And I just felt like I wanted to take control back of what was going into my body. So yeah, that was kind of my final decision to go, I can do this myself. So yeah, and then from that point, when I kind of put it out there to the universe, it was like my body went, oh, thank goodness. And I did actually start to get physically ill. So I don't know whether it was mentally something I was thinking that was going on or whatever, but I was sick. And then one had kind of moved as well. So yeah.
So at this point, how long had you had your implants in for?
11 years.
11 years. Okay.
11 years. Yeah.
And you say that you were married and then had a divorce. It's like, oh my God, it's like I'm like talking to like a sister or something here. So I was married. Oh my God. I was married, and we separated in 2012. And then, I mean, I was diagnosed with bipolar 10 years ago, but then separated from my ex-husband in 2012. And then since then, my life has really unraveled and changed. And it's funny how these things do make you look at things very differently, and you start to really take stock, don't you?
100%. Yeah.
You start to really think, where am I going? What am I doing?
Yeah. You know? What do I want? Like, who am I really? And who do I want to be? Or and I guess also I was in the health and fitness world, and I was talking about all of this stuff to do with health and fitness and wellness, but I didn't really feel that was aligned. It just got to that point where I'm like, hey, wait a minute, these don't feel aligned with what I'm talking about. So.
So you get to the point where you've had them in 11 years, you've made this decision. Now, I've done a lot of reading online, and people talk a lot about breast implant illness and all of the symptoms that they can suffer with. Now, having implants in myself, I obviously look at these things and I think, well, do I have that? Do I have that? Do I have that? And I do have bipolar. But then I did question, am I actually getting those symptoms because of this? But obviously my journey goes right back to when I was 16. So for bipolar and mental health. So I know that I have underlying mental health conditions regardless. But I do always think, does it make it worse? You know, these questions do go through my head. So when you say you started getting sick, what did that look like for you? Whether it was manifested through thought or through actual presence of the implant, what did that look like for you?
It was like physical vomiting, and it was like, maybe it was like more of a severe anxiety, or I was just felt totally not myself in any way. And also because one of them had shifted, again, that's when your body feels off balance and it's not right, and it just,
you know that there's something inside you that's not right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good.
No. So from when you made the decision to when you actually had the explant done, how long was that? Because I have read quite a bit, and I watched your vlog last year on the actual explant experience. But I also see that, as with having implants or any sort of plastic surgery done on yourself, it's also important to make the right choice about something like explant surgery. So I'm reading that there's things about, do you take the capsule out, do you leave it in, all of that kind of stuff. So equally, there's good surgeons and not so good surgeons for explant, I'm guessing. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. And I was lucky enough to get a recommendation, which, again, once I'd put it out there and started talking about it, people started to speak up, and let me know, the best doctors. And there was one doctor in particular that I wanted to go and see. And when I called up to make the appointment, they were like, "Oh, sorry, can't get you in for a month." And at this time, I was ready, like, get them out, get them out, get them out. So I was devastated. And I remember sitting in the gutter outside where I was working at the time, bawling my eyes out in the middle of Bondi. I just didn't want to go through this. I was like, just get them out, get them out. Anyway, I made the appointment, and then I got a call on this was a Friday. I got a call on the Monday saying, "We've had a cancellation. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" It happened so fast. Went in. He was amazing. He just made me feel really comfortable and confident with how he was speaking about it. There was lots of people he'd been doing in Melbourne and in Sydney. It had become quite a trend.
Yeah.
So I just had a good feeling, a good vibe from him.
Yeah.
And so I booked in that day, and I think it might have been 2 months after that date. So I had to go back for another consultation, and then I was in. So it was a quick process once I'd made the decision. And then obviously there was a lot of doubt and stress and anxiety in the lead up to the operation.
Talk to me about that. So what were your fears building up
what
to
they look
it?
like?
Yeah, like, was it just that? Like, what was your negative bully in your head telling you? Like, what was happening? What was your dialogue?
Yeah, that was the number one. What am I going to look like? Like, what would they look like? I didn't remember what they looked like before. So
I don't either.
You're 25. You don't take pictures of your boobs, dude.
I was 25 when I had mine done. I don't remember what they looked like either.
No, I was trying to look back at photos, but you're wearing clothes. So I just thought they'd look like sacks of nothing. That's all I could think of. I'm like, I'm never going to be sexy. I'm going to feel awful. But my other thought pattern was, what happens if something happens in the operation? What happens if the doctor does something? What happens if I don't wake up? It was just constantly. Yeah. But it came back to health is my number one value, and if I have my health, who cares what I look like? I'm sure I'll deal with that. If I need a lift, or if I need to get something else, fat transfers, or whatever options. So I just had to calm myself down. Lots of meditation and journaling in that time.
Yeah. And I can understand why you have that, because even now, thinking about myself in that position, because really, I've had mine in for 14 years, and really I'm at the point where they should be changed. I've had them checked and scanned, and they've said that the walls of them are fine. There's no weaknesses in them. So they're, happy with them. So I've had them checked under, ultrasound and mammogram and all of that business. But when I sit and think, well, I'm 39 now, I don't want to get them replaced, I don't think. In actual fact, I know I don't. But then I sit and think, God, well, what does that look like? What does Emma look like after that? I've even discussed it with a couple of people that I'm friends with, and they'll say, God, it'd be really weird, won't it? It'd be really weird without you having them. But I'm like, yeah, it will. Oh my God. So I get it. It's a funny thing. I mean, I'm not as compelled as you were at this moment in time to do it right now, but I know it's coming. I know it's sort of an inevitability. But then I am sort of sitting there with some of the same questions, you know, well, what will I look like? And I have to change all my clothes, and oh my God.
No, I love wearing my clothes now. It's so great because it just fits into everything. Yeah, a little bit smaller, but
So tell me about the actual procedure itself and the day
yes.
and all of that.
I don't think I slept much the night before. It was a very anxiety-ridden sleep. I've put a lot of this up on my Instagram as well, like the lead up to it, which tells a little bit of the story. But yeah, it was very stressful. My friend took me to the hospital that morning, and I was staying overnight. So this was in Sydney. My family weren't in Sydney, but I was going to my sister's house the next day in Newcastle. But I don't know. I was scared and anxious, but also I was like, okay, I've just got to trust the process and trust my reasoning as to why I'm getting them out. Operation all went well. So, I mean, obviously you wake up and you're like drugged out. Hello, what's just happened? Look down, everything's gone, but I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he came in a couple of hours after the operation, the doctor, and said that he was happy with how it went. He'd taken out the scars that had been there previously from the 2 operations before. So he just made a tiny slit. And he said that my skin should bounce back. So they should bounce back quite well. He could just tell that by when he was in there, I guess. And when he put them back on, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but he sat them up. So they'd obviously sit up high rather than low. Yes, it's just a part of the operation process and how they do it. So that was all I could go off. Okay, great.
Very good. And the recovery process was, how was that for you?
Was so easy compared to getting them in. Minimal pain. I was up walking the next day. I didn't take many painkillers at all. He gave me so many, and I didn't need them. The only thing that was really uncomfortable is that I was wrapped up like a mummy, like quite tight bandages. So that was uncomfortable to sleep. But the actual boobs, like they weren't throbbing or in pain, which is, you could feel little tinkles occasionally, but yeah, nothing really. So I was so surprised, and I was out walking every single day.
And what would you say from the operation time to you being kind of good to go? What was that time frame?
Well, to do with exercising, it was about 3 months. So back into normal life, like doing, workouts and how I live was 3 months. But before that, it was only the exercise that I really couldn't do. I felt like everything was fine. It was fine to, lift the arms up. When you first get them, you can't lift and wash your hair. And...
I couldn't get in the cupboard to get a cup. I was like this. Please help me. Can someone get a cup? It was just awful. I was like a thunderbird. Do you know thunderbirds in Australia?
Yes.
I was like that.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it didn't feel like that at all. It was. I don't know. It felt really easy. But I didn't have drains or that either.
You didn't?
So I think no, I didn't have drains. And you read about should you, shouldn't you? Some doctors say it can be really bad for infection, and then there's so many different ways you can go. But I guess I just trusted my doctor's knowledge, what he's done before, and just went with that. So I just got the implants removed. I did have some skin and sleep issues post-operation, but that's just the drugs that are in your system, and obviously the toxins that would be floating around after you've had an operation. So I just really worked on my gut health to help that.
So now tell me what life looks like afterwards, because I've heard you say a couple of times now that you had some unattended kind of wounds that maybe you now recognize, I'm guessing, that led you to not feeling good enough, led you to, in your mind, enhancing your body to fill the gap of whatever wasn't emotional need wasn't being met, I guess.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work with kinesiologists and healers.
Yeah.
And I guess it all stemmed from just not having self-love.
Yeah.
I didn't have any self-worth, or didn't love myself fully for who I was. I was constantly comparing myself to everybody else and what they looked like. Yeah, I remember in my early 20s, I had long blonde hair extensions. I got the blue contact eyes, got the boobs done, like when I had them done the first time. Look back at photos, I'm like, I was trying to be Barbie. Like, yeah, so it's a weird, yeah, I mean, it's not weird. Every woman, I think, goes through this in their time. It's just some people can conquer it quicker than others, or can deal with it. Yeah. It took me a long time. But now, I love and respect my body for what it is and what it can do. And I'm not worried about, having a few extra kilos around my waist or having smaller boobs. It's the shift in my thought patterns about myself.
What are the skills or the practices or the rituals that you think you've, taken on board in your life that's helped you to be in that more self-assured space? So what is it that you do in your life that helps you to be in the space you're in, rather than not feeling enough, which I can totally relate to, because I've spent many years of my life being like that, and trying to be something that's unattainable, that's never achievable. So you never even get there anyway, with all of this kind of, you never get there anyway. So it's just very it's very self-defeating anyway, because you don't even know where you want to go. You're aiming for something. I don't even think you know what you're aiming for. I didn't anyway. So tell me what you do now to help you be in a much better space.
If I do get into the kind of a negative space, I will always question it, and I'll always try and work through it myself. So whether that's journaling or sitting on it, like meditating, doing some kind of movement or something that makes me feel good, I find helps. Or I recruit outside, and I'm not afraid to do that. And some people are like, oh, I don't have the money to pay for someone to do. I don't have the time, or like, I don't need that. But for me, as I was talking about before, kinesiologists that can work through energy that, you're holding on to in your body from past wounds or past issues, or a healer that can try and just calm, or get rid of, again, any negative thoughts or feelings, helps me so much. Even things to calm my body and mind, like acupuncture, or I just find I recruit outside. Outside help.
I'm
That's
the same.
For.
I agree. So I often say that we get sent to school and we get, we learn our alphabet, we get taught how to add up, we learn some science, we learn how to, all of these things. But actually, when it comes to life, we don't get taught the most valuable skills to help us navigate our way through life. I was saying to someone the other day that how did I get to 39 years old and not know what a healthy boundary was? Well, 38. So I'll give myself a bit of credit. I started learning at 38. But I mean, considering I'm 39 now, how have I gone 38 years and not knowing what a healthy boundary is around work, friends, relationships, just not knowing, not knowing how to identify more than probably 10 emotions, or, till I'm 38. I mean, it's just insane how we can get to that point. But yet everyone, when we're little, is worried about, can we write ABC? Well, how about, can we stand in ourselves and say, that doesn't work for me, or that does work for me, from a toddler age? Why not? Why not? When it comes to the time for me to have children, I really hope that the children that I have, from as as young as they can speak, are able to say, no, thank you, that
No, I
doesn't
don't
work
want to
for
do
me.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah. You know, just,
Yeah,
and even things like, this was never my story, but sometimes I see adults saying, go on, go and give them a kiss, go and give them a kiss. No, they don't have to,
I
you know.
don't want to. Why would I?
But,
Yeah, that's
but
right.
you know, it's teaching them this, it's teaching that they can't
Then
have
to have a
autonomy.
voice and
Yeah. They should really learn to have that autonomy from such a young age, because it's when they get older and get into situations where the parents aren't around and they need to have the confidence to have autonomy. If they haven't been practicing that when they've had their parents by their side, how are they going to know? You know?
Yeah.
So many things I'm so passionate about, the lack of emotional education for children. I'm so passionate about it because I know personally the fallout that it has. And I see many people I love, the fallout that it has by not having this awareness and not knowing that you can say yes or no, and it's okay. And, you know, I know an amazing woman who often says, let the adult hear no, you know, let the child say no, let the adult hear it, let the adult be uncomfortable hearing the no.
Yeah.
Let's not force the child to say yes for
love
anything,
that.
whether it's a hug, a shaken hand, or if they don't want to, they don't want to, right? And it's so important, because I think the lack of autonomy around our physical selves is what leads us into all of these problems.
Yeah.
You know, like the lack of awareness, because I think certainly for me, I didn't have awareness that I had the right to have this autonomy around my physical or emotional self. That it always had
And
to
then
be
you get
pleasing other people, or, you know, so
I'm
you don't
exactly the
learn to do
same.
it.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just crazy,
no.
isn't it?
Yeah. It's like we need that, not science. I've never
Yeah.
used science again. Long
Don't get me
division,
wrong.
like what?
I know. I mean, I loved science, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I'm sure that being able to stand in my truth and say, no, that doesn't work for me, from the age of, you know, well, always would have been far more helpful.
Yeah. And follow the path that you want to go, not be listening to the outside noise.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
being tuned into what it is that you like. So I got asked a question the other day: who is Emma and what does Emma love? And I was like, and it was a really difficult question. And it's one that I'm getting better at answering, but I certainly haven't mastered it. Because there's been so much sort of people pleasing over my years, you know, of losing my own identity along the way to try and conform to, I don't know, I don't even think it's what other people expect. I think it's what we think other people expect of us.
People expect.
It's all in our head, right? We think that other people think we should do
want
this.
to hear this or think this, or it's
not. But if we sat down and actually said to them, what is it you want? They'd probably say, you to be happy, you know, go do what makes you happy. But we build up a whole story, which is why I love journaling. And I love that you say that you use that. It's a tool that I've only started using really in the last year properly. But it tells us a lot about ourselves. It's quite powerful, isn't it? And then what do you do? So you do public speaking now, don't you?
I do, yes, which I never thought I would do in all of the years of growing up. I used to be so petrified to stand up in front of people and speak. I used to get a nervous red rash on my chest and not be able to get my words out. But when you've got topics that you are passionate about and you're speaking your truth, that's when you can do it with confidence, which is what I've learned. So it's like, again, it's not what people want to hear, it's what I want to share.
Yes. Yeah, it's such a hard mentality to shift though, isn't it, when it's ingrained in you. Tell me a bit about kinesiology, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and in truth I don't know a lot about it, so tell me a bit more about that, because it's something that you clearly feel has worked very well for you.
Yeah, so obviously we're made up of energy, and there's different energies and emotions that connect to past experiences. So that is held in your body, in your like consciousness. So
Mm-hmm.
working with a kinesiologist can release those energies and emotions that you're holding on to. So just say something happened when I was 3 years of age that made me feel like I needed to please others. So it will take you kind of back to that time and that emotion and release that. So when something happens that might trigger you, then you won't have that negative or like needing to please thing come up. So it's so interesting. So it's just kind of like working through the layers of your life.
Yeah.
There's been some amazing things that have come up, and intuitively, like, you just have to say like what comes up, you know, like a memory will pop up and you're like, I don't actually even remember that, but that just came to my mind. But that's what it is, and you've just held on to that for, you know, 30
And
years, 35 years.
how does it actually work? Because I've done in the last year, I've been learning a lot about, you know, I'm reading a great book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
So a lot about how we store trauma within our bodies and the definition of what trauma is, which is not what everyone always thinks. It doesn't always have to be some horrible situation. It often can be, but it doesn't have to be, you know, physical or sexual or any other type of abuse. It can be more subtle things like emotional needs not being met, other people, you know, domineering characters in the household. It can be lots of things. And I went and did some EMDR for that, which I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
So it's called eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. So in that, they will get you to recall the event. First of all, they get you to find a safe space. Then they get you to recall the event. And through eye motion, the idea is that when we process healthily, well, this is the theory, when we process healthily, we process it normally during our REM sleep. During REM sleep, our eyes are going backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. So while you're awake and conscious, what they're saying is when something traumatic or perceived to be traumatic happens to us, we don't store it efficiently in the long-term memory. We store it in the short-term memory, which means that it can jump into our day as triggers at any time.
Yeah.
So the idea of EMDR is that you reprocess it from your short-term memory into your long-term memory, by calling it into your fully awake conscious mind, reliving it in terms of safely, in terms of the sensation. Where do you feel that in your body? It can be as subtle as a knot in your tummy, and then they will use a combination of tapping, eye movement following their fingers, or a light box, so that you consciously reprocess that memory and sort of desensitize to it. Now, it does kick up stuff as you go through the sessions. So, but it is effective, especially if there is, you know, some things that, for me, I was driven to go there because although I'd done a lot of talk therapy and I was doing a lot of other work, I was still holding some physical responses. So when I was triggered, even though I could rationalize it, my body was still telling me something's here. So like a knot in my tummy or a bit of anxiety, or I'd suddenly be in that high alert, even though in my head I was saying, yeah, but I know what this is, you know, but my body was still
your
telling
body
me.
stores it. Yeah. Well, that's similar. So it's like you feel the where do you feel it? You'll work through what the emotions are, and it's just like releasing those energies by rubbing certain points on your body. So I'm not a kinesiologist, so I hope I'm saying this correct, but that's
I'm not an EMDR therapist either, so just my own personal experience. We both like this, hands up.
Yeah, so it is just releasing those emotions that are stored in your body, so then when that comes up again, you don't feel that whatever it is, pain
intensely.
point, or yeah, that's right. You don't feel that anxiety or the stress or the anger or the pain or the whatever it may be. Yeah. So I've found it's worked for me. So it's my go-to.
Yeah, and you do this one-on-one, like under guidance. So this person this therapist is working with you, and then they will touch certain points on your body, or
I do most of the, if we do it online, I'll do the releasing, but she'll do it if we're in person, so touching certain areas to release.
I'm always interested in other people's kind of methods and go-tos, because I know there's so many, and there's not one way that fits everyone.
No, and it's so cool like that, isn't it? We've got so many options and ways to explore, and it's what works for you. I always recommend my kinesiologist to people, and it's like, well, if you go to her, great, but if not, then that's not your thing. Maybe it's something else. That's fine.
The one thing that I have that I do seem to notice with everyone I speak to, though, is there are two things that pretty much everybody says they do. It's journaling and some sort of meditation or mindfulness. They seem to be the core two that everyone I speak to that's on any sort of healing or self-awareness journey or attending to, unhealed wounds from their past, they seem to be the two. And then the other ones will vary greatly, which I love, because I love to hear about them. But yeah, journaling and meditation, everybody seems to say those two, regardless of what the others are. Meditation, I find, is it can bring out so many things, especially lately. Sometimes I'll do it and I'll be filled with joy, and other times I've sobbed through a few meditation sessions.
I have too, and also like you feel frustrated, or I'm the same. There's certain emotions that can come up, and it's an amazing experience.
And then, so what are your plans now? So you do your public speaking. So tell me what your life looks like now, as opposed to Dubai. Were you cabin crew at the time?
Yes, I was. Yeah, so it's very different. I'm keeping people fit rather than feeding them. But I am, I work on a lot of, I MC conferences and events, hosting, whether that's a big workout or a yoga session, or it's speaking to a lot of corporate businesses I've been working with, or creating content for them. But now I'm finding my journey is moving more towards women, and really helping them understand how to drop into their femme and find those moments of being, so they can really flow and flourish through life. And and again, this is something I wish I'd learned in school or post school. Early 20s would have been great, but just how to work with your cycle, what foods to eat, what movement to do to get the most out of your life, I guess, and feel good all year round, instead of 3 weeks out of the month and 1 week feeling like you want to hurt someone. And worse.
Hormones are crazy.
Through it, don't we?
Hormones are crazy. So tell me a little bit about that, because that was your most recent post about kind of honouring your cycle. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I found that very interesting.
It's something I've been exploring over the past few years, experiencing severe burnout and having a really bad run, probably just post divorce. I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, working hard, also, socializing, kind of just distracting myself so I didn't have to deal with things straight away. And I had this severe burnout. And then from that time, I've now just started to work with, how do I feel when I wake up? What do I want to do? It's like, how do I want to move my body today? Like, what is bringing me joy? Instead of, oh, I should do that. Oh, I should do that heavyweight session because that girl looks like that and I want to look like that, or because this magazine article says this, or whatever it might be. So now I really tune into every day. Okay, today I don't have much energy, so I'm going to go for a walk in the sunshine. I'm going to do that with a friend because that's going to make me feel really good, instead of forcing myself to do an intense session when I'm not going to get anything out of that, and I'm just going to damage my body more so. And that's when we do experience things like burnout. We'll put on weight. We won't be able to lose weight if our body is constantly under a stress. It's stress on stress. So you're working hard and then you go and train hard 7 days a week. No wonder you've got no energy, and your body is reacting in the way it is. Yeah, so that's what I really want to share. And I didn't realize it was something I wanted to share until only recently, where it's looking back, thinking, what have I experienced over the last few years is an amazing message to share with women. So that's where I'm going.
I love that. I really love that, because there's a lot of, I've done it myself with the whole fitness thing, which is why it's kind of been like a yo-yo experience for me, because there's a lot of shoulding and not a lot of sort of honouring of the space that I'm in at that time, especially when I'm managing bipolar as well. So, there's been a lot of not honouring where I'm at and what actually is going to benefit me that day. And a lot of, even in a perceived healthy way, aspiring to be fitter and stronger and all of these things, which I'm not saying you shouldn't do, but it's very easy to get caught in a trap of, I should, and when I get to this point it will be okay, and when I get to this level of fitness I will. It's sort of, from my early 20s I moved it from one type of running to attain something I didn't really know I wanted, into a healthier type. And understanding that neither's actually great, we just need to come back into our own a little bit. So I love that that's the space you're in.
And slow down. Like, we just need to slow down. I went to the doctors the other day to just do a checkup, regular checkup, and I walked in and she thought I was pregnant, and I was like, oh no, sorry to disappoint, but no, not yet. And she said there's so many women that have been to her in the last month that have fallen pregnant and have been trying for years, that she's been working with, and it's because of what's going on globally that people are forced to slow down and they're falling pregnant. So that goes to show that stress and all of the stuff we deal with day to day is causing these issues in our body. Yeah,
I agree. Thank you so much for today. I will share all of the links so people can find you and hear everything that you're doing, because I just think that you're a great person for young women to be looking up to and taking advice from. So I will be sharing those links with everything that I put out. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat.
And good luck with the move. And I hope we'll connect. We'll connect again anyway. But thank you very much for today. I appreciate you very much.